Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bet the Edge. Thanks for watching on our NBC Sports YouTube channel. Thank you to all those who are listening as well. Coming up today, we have 8 college football games to break down, ranging from Utah to Washington, Ole Miss against Georgia, and a game, Drew, that I will be at on the sidelines. It's Michigan at Penn State. Happy Valley, baby. And we'll also break it down the Heisman race, best bets to make. And something tells me, Drew, we're going to be on opposite sides of our Heisman picks today. And as always, Thursday Night Football, my guy. This one, Panthers versus Bears. Special edition of quarterbacking going on in this game. We'll break down how to bet this with Justin Fields or without Justin Fields. It's V-Money in the Well Capper. Happy Thursday, Drew. How's your week going?
Pretty solid. NFL was good. College football, I took some hellacious beats as usual, but that's sort of the way it's been for me for like the last month. So, yeah, let's grind out some winners. Although, hey, Missouri came through. They covered a little nice little cover against Georgia. And you know, I guess the question swirling about college football right now are the teams at the top as good as the market thinks they are? Because I have some questions.
Yeah, no, they're not. And we're going to get into that today because I'm ready. I think the college football playoff is going to be shaken up these next few weeks. We kind of talked about last week. In Missouri, Drew, great call. We wanted that money line sprinkle. They were looking pretty good for a little bit, but Georgia is Georgia. But I do have some news to share. I did something new this week that I encourage everyone to go out there and try. It's a 10 out of 10 recommend. I played disc golf, 9 holes of disc golf for the first time ever. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, of course. Disc golf is is a ton of fun. Yeah. Great activity this time of year too, is getting out and get some sun.
Yeah, and get a little exercise. And the best part about it, Drew, you can suck and it's still a good time. And that's what I went through.
Of course.
So
go the out learning there, play curve with throwing the disc is really aggressive. Like after like first couple throws, you're like, this isn't for me. And then you're like, oh, I get it. Muscle memory just straight up.
See, I was actually the opposite. Like at first, I was like, oh, yeah, this is really easy. And then it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, oh, it's the fatigue factor setting in.
Oh, there you go. That's it.
Yeah, back-to-back workout days, like back-to-backs in the NBA. That's an underplay, Drew. All right, let's talk about some college football. We got Utah at Washington, a Pac-12 matchup. The Huskies laying 9.5 points, over-under at 52.5. And this is a game we talked about a little bit last week because the Huskies are playing the toughest schedule remaining regular season in all of college football. Utah is the second part of this 4-game stretch for them before they possibly would take on Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, as we would expect. This is Utah or pass from me, Drew. How are you feeling about this?
Oh, buddy, we got some oppo here because I was going to ask you, did Michael Penix slip in the shower and sprain his ankle or something, and I didn't hear about it? Because I don't get why this is a 9.5 point spread. I feel like that the market has a short memory here. It was not 2 weeks ago that Utah traveled to Oregon and just got obliterated by the Ducks. And, they were actually at home for that Oregon game. My goodness, I thought they were on the road there. I assumed they were on the road with that lopsided outcome. They were at home. One home defeat of the Arizona State, not playing for anything, and people think that this team is completely fixed it. Well, I got a bad vibe about Utah going on the road here against Washington. I think this should be a double-digit spread. I don't think this is the bet of the week or anything like that, but there are some things about Washington that I really still can't completely put my finger on. This offense is not good, despite their 55 points they put on the scoreboard last week, and I think Washington's defense is still among the absolute elite in Power 5, and I think that will show up here big time in this game. So Washington for me, I think wins by margin, and off the top we were kind of banting about who is ultimately going to find their way out of the college football playoffs, because there are definitely some questions about the teams at the top. Well, Washington will get theirs, but I'm not seeing much of an issue here with Utah. What's your angle here?
See, my problem with Washington is obviously we talked about the Oregon game. They had that, last minute comeback. Before that, it was a 7-point win at Arizona. It's a look ahead spot, so we can let them breathe on that. Then after the Oregon game, Arizona State, it's an 8-point win with 15 points. You got to understand, I understand the physicality of the Oregon game. They didn't look that great, but the last 2 weeks weren't encouraging either for me. I mean, a 9-point win at Stanford and then a 10-point win at USC. And we talked about how Washington should win that game. USC's live to win because the spread didn't make much sense, but the Huskies haven't been winning with margin. I mean, the 10 points against USC is the most they've won by in the last 5 to 6 weeks. And like I said, they've been playing tough. They got USC. They played them versus Utah, at Oregon State, versus Washington State, then Oregon. I think the Huskies are going to drop a game or two. It's just the physicality of playing all these teams back to back to back to back with everything to play for. I just see a letdown spot for them in this stretch, Drew. So I want the money line. I don't want the points. I just sprinkle the money lines here against Washington.
Okay. So no, but we built ourselves a nice little 9.5 point Polish middle. So you hate to see that. But yeah, I think your case is fair. Like the warning signs are flashing red for Washington. Like at some point, the bill will come due on their over performances this season. But for me, I think it's it may not come until even the Pac-12 title game, considering how we've seen some of these injuries stack up against future opponents.
Yeah, and I mean, I really hate going 0-4 on the money line bets against Washington these last week, kind of the next 3 weeks. But I mean, if someone's got to do it, it's going to be this guy. Yeah, I don't have much faith in Utah's offense, Drew, but that defense, they can hold them in that game. Let's talk about an ACC game where we should see a lot of offense, but the total is only at 49.5. Miami at Florida State. The Seminoles are laying 14.5. The total's actually gone under 10 of Florida State's last 12 games against the Miami Hurricanes. So maybe that's why the total isn't as high as I expected to be in this matchup. But that is the way I leaned when I looked at this one, Drew. Florida State's a team playing for everything right now, and a cakewalk of an ACC. What are you playing?
Yeah, so this is one of the teams that I do take exception being kind of bantied in as among the top 5 in college football. I think the defense is for real, sure, but I have big time questions about this offense being able to hang with some of the elite. Ultimately, I have Florida State closer to like borderline top 10 than clearly top 3, which is where the market seems to be rating these guys. And maybe even more than that, like I still have a pretty favorable rating on Miami. Like Miami to me, I think is right in the mix with the likes of Ole Miss, with the likes of Alabama and Tennessee. Like they're not, they had some bad losses, and people will remember like specifically the standout games, which has probably soured people on getting involved with Miami. But 14.5 is much, much too high relative to how I see these teams playing. And in fact, it made me legitimately search out if there was an injury that I missed somehow, some way for Miami here, because that's kind of what this line suggests. Fair for me is closer to 10. So I think you're getting a nice number. Being on the other side of 14, and Hurricanes, one of my favorite plays of the week. If assuming I haven't missed anything, but that said, right now at least I haven't heard anything that would scare me off this one.
Yeah, last time I checked, Connor Van Dyke, the quarterback for Miami, is in action for this game. So that's pretty much the key thing that you need to have a Miami ticket is for Van Dyke to play here. But I like your take because Florida State. I considered going to Florida State at Pitt last weekend. And I was like, you know what? If I go, I'm going to bet super hard on Florida State. They should smack them. And 24-7 win for Florida State. The offense didn't look explosive as they did against teams like Wake Forest or Syracuse, which makes me just start to think that, yeah, Florida State, I didn't think they were one of the top 5 teams all year, but I'm really starting to feel that way now, Drew. I think Florida State could be more fraudulent than they appear to be. And a team like Oregon is much better than Florida State or Washington, and that's where I'm going to be going. With my college football playoff tickets. But only thing that scares me off of this, and I'll say before we move on to the next game, Florida State has a game next against North Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely an all-out give us effort spot before we play.
Yeah, right.
Smaller school than play Florida.
This is punch our tickets kind of a game, no question. Yeah. They finished with North Alabama and Florida, and the way Florida is kind of falling apart in front of our eyes, I would expect that they get those 2 wins pretty comfortably. But this Miami is going to be a test, and again, like it looks like we have a couple of questionable probable players in the running back, wide receiver, tight end room, but nobody that I think specifically moves the needle for me in terms of being unavailable here. So all systems go Miami.
Yeah, and also it's noted if the under does hit once again, 10-2 in the last 12 meetings between the 2 teams. That also is good for the dog here with 14.5 points you're getting. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Keep in mind that we are going to keep fading the Georgia Bulldogs. That's what I think is going to happen here, Drew, because Ole Miss is visiting town. 10.5 point spread for the Bulldogs. Over-under is 58.5. And Ole Miss has been a ATS sweet darling this year, 6-2-1. And honestly, I think the pace of play here, the tempo that Kiffin and company wants to play, could keep Georgia on their heels even at home. And last week we took Missouri with the points and sprinkled the money line. I'm going to do the same thing this week, Drew. I'm going to take Ole Miss, sprinkle that money line. I think if Georgia loses, it's going to be with the next few weeks, and Ole Miss is probably the best opponent they play, even with Tennessee on deck.
Yeah, you mentioned it. They've been against the spread darling so far this season. One of my favorite wins of the year was Ole Miss over Tulane. I don't know if you remember that game. That was a wild one.
Of course.
The win against Texas A&M was pretty impressive last week. They pushed the -3. Maybe a hair of a looking ahead there. I think they probably could have acquitted themselves a little better with Texas A&M, having some of those injuries there. In general, this is a team that I think is pretty healthy right now, which matters a ton. Only guy that that is out of the lineup who kind of moved the needle at all for them this season, one wide receiver, Davis, but they've adjusted to his absence, which has been like the end of September. I believe that wide receiver Franklin is going to be able to go. He is questionable, but he missed the last 2 games. I think specifically keeping him, trying to get him right for this contest so that they have a little bit, a few more ways to attack. If there's one thing you want to kind of point to Ole Miss about, their offense has regressed the last handful of weeks, and it could be quality of opponent, but I think it's more likely just their, keeping some of the good plays in their back pocket for an opportunity to play spoiler here for Georgia. Interested to see really how the rest of this Ole Miss season plays out, because they have some true blue NFL talent on this team, and I would like to see these guys in some more meaningful games in December, get a good read on what they could be like as pros. But Ole Miss has a deep, both defense and offense that are better than league average in terms of EPA per play adjusted for opponents. And I think that's going to set up for a really, really good contest here. Ole Miss, in my opinion, is slightly better than Missouri, and Missouri gave these guys a real deal test. So I think this is sets up well for another really high quality clash.
Yeah, I graded Ole Miss last week. I'd said they were my number 9 ranked team. I moved them up, even despite the 3-point win. I thought they should have beat A&M by 10 plus points there, but college football look ahead spots, it's definitely tough situations here. But let me ask you this, because obviously it sounds like we're both in agreement on Ole Miss here and situations at hand. If Ole Miss beats Georgia, or if beforehand, if you think it could happen, should we be getting tickets on Ole Miss to make the college football playoff? Because their lone loss was versus Alabama. They're both in the SEC West. Bama still could lose a game, and that opens the door for Ole Miss. But this is a must win for the Rebels.
Oh, boy, I don't think it's a good enough price. And honestly, one of the reasons I like Ole Miss this week is some of the injuries to the linebacking core for Georgia, I think, matter. And if those guys are healthy in December and there's a rematch between Ole Miss and Georgia for the SEC title, I think that probably goes the other way, considering the location and, just sort of the experience factor. Georgia having been in that spot so many times in recent years, I think definitely matters. So I like money line this week more as the, like the right upside swing, as opposed to going for the, the grand slam on the getting them into the playoffs. But interesting to hear you have them up to 9, because they've definitely been on the move up for me in general as well.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point. I may have got a little ahead of myself saying Ole Miss to make the college football playoff rather than, making the SEC championship game.
Oh, that's doable. That's doable. That's doable.
That's the sharper angle for sure. Because I actually just looked up odds for SEC championship game winner, and Ole Miss is 100-1, and they're the 4th team. There's only Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and Ole Miss to choose from. So, yeah, I guess Ole Miss is not going to win the SEC championship, but if you think they do, I mean, swing now. Or forever hold your peace, because
it's a big number. I can't remember the last 100-1 I closed. It's a big number. Yeah,
that is I mean, for a top 10 ranked team as well. So that's the type of faith they show in right now. So maybe they could do it once, but they're not doing it twice. So we'll see how that game ends up. Another big game. I mean, we talked about USC, I think, every single week on the show. It feels like, Drew, and every single week we keep saying, at some point this defense has to look a little better, but I believe the statistic I saw was 268 points in their last 5 games they've allowed, something like that. And then now you got the Oregon Ducks at home laying 15.5, total 73.5. I mean, I am strictly going Oregon team total or spread or pass, because USC is also 0-7 ATS in their last 7 games.
Yeah, you're not a believer in the dead cat bounce here. USC fires their defensive coordinator, and the defense all of a sudden gives you an honest effort. I mean, I honestly I can't tell you if it's talent or the way that they were being coached or
Tackling's
what, but
terrible. It's a
you
mix
know,
of both, I'm sure.
and that something that you can fix in a week? Probably not.
No.
This is a team that has really talented recruits, and they just never played up to the level of their recruiting status, which is an indictment of the coaching and development process. The defensive coordinator pays the ultimate price for it, and I think USC pretty much searches for answers this offseason, and it may include more changes. It's really tough for me to put my finger on the future of the program for the Trojans here, but this is an interesting spread in contrast with last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
The game was in LA as opposed to now we're in Eugene. But it's a big, this implies a meaningful delta. Either we've adjusted USC down aggressively, or we are saying that Oregon is that much better than Washington. And while I do believe Oregon is better than Washington, I'm not sure it's by this much. And so, the fact that Oregon's going to have to win this by 3 scores to get 15.5 home has me scared off of playing the game at all, because I don't think I'm interested in getting involved with USC right now. And, like, in the back of my head, the way Caleb Williams ended that game had kind of a little bit of he might not play again kind of vibe. And I know we haven't heard any of that, right? But the degree to which he has kind of closed the chapter in his own mind about, his time here at USC and, what that means in terms of his availability and performance. And really, they may look at some players down the roster. He may not get a full start if this game is out of hand. Does he even play 4 quarters? Like, these are all kind of questions that are swirling for me. And I don't have any inside information to say one way or the other, but that would explain some more of the delta downgrading of USC based on that outcome.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, because even last week, kept talking about how that Washington USC line was so fishy in a lot of ways, and then we saw the result of that. But yeah, Caleb Williams, I love the take on that, Drew, because I feel like he's not going to play a full season. He might opt out of the bowl game as well, just secure that #1 draft stock. That seems like it's going to happen. I'm hoping he doesn't end up in Arizona, but it's looking like where it's going to end up, Drew. Who do you think's got #1 pick?
Arizona's going to climb their way out of there. Kyler Murray's not well supported on that team in terms of talent, but he's good enough in today's quarterback day in NFL to win 3-4 games down the stretch here, and I think that's enough to get Arizona into like the 4th, 5th pick instead of 1, 2. If I were Caleb Williams, I would be shopping for homes in the Northeast. I think Giants, Patriots are probably the 2 more likely teams that are going to be at the top of the draft.
You better hope he's gonna buy into the Patriots way, because he makes some good career out of himself, some good money. Before we get on to the next set of teams, Drew, better bet Oregon team total over 44.5 or first half team total over 27.5.
Ooh. Is there a better bet? Well, if there's a decent chance that they only get 5 possessions in the first half of this game, at which point you need 4 touchdowns to get the first one. I mean, the first half. So I think I would go full game, just as a means of, erasing some of the variance associated with fewer possessions. I think this is no question. It's going to be a high scoring game. No resistance here by USC. But, if you do get any kind of inspired performance from those players after the move at defensive coordinator, it would be in the first half.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think once Oregon gets in space, it's going to be hard to tackle. It's hard to tackle for USC in general, but tackling Oregon in space at home, good luck. All right. As I mentioned earlier, Michigan and Penn State is happening this Saturday. And at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, NBC Sports YouTube channel, Eric Froton and myself are answering all your college football betting questions for Week 11. This game is at Happy Valley between #3 Michigan and #11 Penn State. We're going to film the show, hit the tailgate, talk to everyone, hit the sidelines. So come and check it out, get some bets. And then also, if you see us the game, say hi, send a screenshot. And Drew, I'll say this, Eric and I, we don't drink, but if Michigan covers and team total under hits for Penn State, I might have a drink or two, my friend.
All right.
And just because last week was so hard with Purdue scoring a touchdown with 18 seconds left.
Oh, it was the worst.
And ruining my nice Michigan streak we had going. So now we got to start a new streak. It's the Wolverines laying 4.5 or 5 at Penn State. Happy Valley, over under 45.5. I'm so excited to be at this game, and I'm expecting a hard-fought battle. There's one key area where I think there's two key areas actually where I think Michigan will take advantage of. Penn State and the red zone offense is ranked 93rd in the country. And we talk about their passing efficiency between Drew Dinsick, a.k.a. the poor man's Josh Allen we talk about. Well, they're 54th in offensive passing efficiency. Michigan will eat up in those two areas, in my opinion, Drew. So you already know I was rocking with Wolverines before we came on the show, but I do like the 4.5, and I play the team total under 20.5 for Penn State.
Yeah, my delta on these two teams is closer to a touchdown. So you have to be pretty generous with home field advantage mattering here for Penn State to get down to 4.5. So this is Michigan or pass for me. I guess I'm starting to really lose any kind of confidence that my numbers on Penn State are correct. This is a very, very unusual team in terms of their approach to games. And I think the fact that they basically just completely gave up the ghost against Ohio State after that game got out of hand is in the back of my head that could happen again. Michigan pretty clearly has some bulletin board material with, the way that they're being ranked nationally relative to what we all know, which is that they're probably the best team. And I think just in general, the negative news cycles, everybody kind of treating them like the villain, they've embraced it. And it's really kind of, I think, kind of bringing that team together even more in terms of making a run for, a national title this season. So, Michigan's an interesting squad right now in a lot of ways. And they're obviously the entirety of their season depends on beating Ohio State in that Big Ten, the kind of the final meeting of the regular season, because you got to imagine they're going to be like 28-point favorites in the Big Ten championship, and then they're probably going to be the 1 seed if they beat Ohio State. So that affords them a little bit cleaner path in the playoff. And that considering what happened last year and the importance of this particular avenue for them, I doubt you see them with any kind of a let up here. This is a team that seems very, very focused to me. And if you want to talk about their defense, they're back to number one, I think, pretty clearly. This is a team that is, hitting almost historic levels in terms of the quality of defense in EPA per play, and the offense is right there with the elites in the NFL. So, Michigan minus 4.5 is a good look.
Yeah, Michigan hasn't also allowed a single point in the third quarter all season. Not one team has scored 1 point coming out of halftime against Michigan. So. And even last week, Purdue's 13 points they put up. Like we said, score 18 seconds left. That is the most points scored on Michigan all season. They had 6 entering about to finish that game before scoring. So, yeah, Michigan's defense, obviously the greatest. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about the point of this Michigan team coming together based off of what they're going through with the news cycles, the cheating scandal, and even entering the season with their coach being suspended, and he's still under hot water with the news. They're doing everything possible, Drew, to hold this Wolverines team back, and they're not letting it happen. So, yeah, I'm going to continue riding this Michigan wave, and I ain't getting off. So I'll see you on Saturday, Happy Valley. Don't be sad when I'm the only one in the stadium going like this when Michigan gets the first down. All right, let's talk about Maryland at Nebraska. Terps, 2.5-point favorites. This is the fishiest line in all of college football this weekend. Total sitting at 44.5. When I talked to my counterpart, Eric Froton, about this game, he said he's on Nebraska with the points and the money line because 94 to 97% of the money across the 4 major sports books in the U.S. are taking Maryland money. And the line hasn't budged a single point. Makes me like Nebraska a little bit too, but I do not trust the Cornhuskers ever. Maryland's obviously the better team, but after losing 4 straight, Drew, I mean, maybe we have to adjust the Terrapins as well.
Yeah, no, that completely checks out. I mean, Maryland's offense, which at times I thought was a little frisky against some of the elite defenses in college football, really has dried on the vine. And their defense, we know, is pretty susceptible. And this is a matchup that, I really am not finding a clear way into to favor either of these teams. Nebraska's defense is well below average in terms of EPA per play on offense adjusted for opponent. Their defense is above. Maryland's offense is slightly above their defense is below. So this is kind of strength on strength, weakness on weakness. If you want to say that, that this is pretty close to a draw, at least in terms of statistical overall strength, and you want to tip the balance in favor of Nebraska because they're at home, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and it's hard to put your hard-earned money on Nebraska. I'll be the first one to say that, but I think this is a week where you got to consider the Cornhuskers. You got to at least play the money line a little bit or take the points here if you're going to bet this game or watch this game. I just feel like I said, it's the fishiest line of the week. And Maryland on the road after 4 straight losses. And our producer Dan gave us a great note that the Terrapins are 0-8 against the spread in their last 8 against the West Division of the Big Ten. That's definitely concerning.
I think one of the reasons that there's probably a lopsided market in terms of splits, but the number's not moving, is this is kind of a classic wise guy spot.
Yeah.
Like it's Nebraska
public versus sharps.
Yeah, and Nebraska got bet last week and they didn't win. And now they're drawing a team that is that is slightly inferior. Nebraska's at home. This is like blood in the water for the Sharks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely think it's going to see very lopsided results here for people in the betting market. So, I mean, don't go crazy betting Maryland, Nebraska, but if you're going to bet it, consider taking the underdog in the money in November where anything can happen. And I wanted your opinion because that's a Peacock game earlier, but we got the NBC and Peacock game at night where Michigan State is the largest underdog it's been, I think, of my entire lifespan against Ohio State. The Buckeyes are laying 31.5 at home. Total's 47.5. Makes me feel like Michigan State's team total under is the play because 31.5 spread with a 47.5 total. Kind of seems like the home team's going to run away with it, Drew.
Well, I mean, the Ohio State defense remains like truly elite.
Yeah,
like,
top 5.
This is an absolute spectacular unit, and there were moments in that Rutgers game where people were like, here you go. No. Ultimately, like the defense was never really going to let Rutgers kind of hang around in there and get the scores they needed to put that one away. So the fact that they kind of found ways to ultimately pull away, not surprising. And the fact that it was largely at the behest of, really, really solid, just all around performance in the second half is what you expect out of a team that, was faced with that. So no alarm bells really going off here for me for Ohio State, despite the, fact that, it was an ugly cover last week against Rutgers, and it was an ugly missed cover against Wisconsin. And, that's 2 road games in the Big Ten in the months of late October and November. That's when things start to get tough. Now they return home after 2 weeks on the road, and they're taking on a Michigan State team that's coming off of a pretty fluky win at home themselves against Nebraska, and now has to travel. This does have like whiffs of 49-0. And I don't know if you know what game I'm referring to. But, that's kind of where I'm at on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, Michigan 49, Michigan State 0. Ohio State 49, Michigan State 0. I could see it happening for sure. Michigan State is 0-6 ATS in the last 6 meetings with Ohio State. And like I said, this is the largest spread ever, but I think this talent gap is definitely at least 4 touchdowns significant here, especially as you mentioned, Ohio State going to come back home. One thing I will note, Drew, that I think is hilarious because Brian, our guy here at NBC, he texted me at 2:07 p.m. on Saturday. Rutgers? ? 2:08 p.m. 1 minute later, maybe not. Ohio State with the pick 6.
I'll tell you to close the historical door here. Michigan State, the last time that they were touchdown dogs of 4 touchdowns or more, so 28 plus touchdown dogs, was September 7th, 1996 at Nebraska. They lost that game 55-14. Did not cover, did not win.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. 1996. Jeez, man. Talk about history in the making right here.
Yeah. Is that before your time?
Yeah. No, 93, man. Come on. Don't
93.
disrespect me. I was 3 years
I
old. Come on.
figured. Yeah. But
I
you
was
weren't
just getting my
watching.
football
You
handicap
weren't
started
watching?
then,
Yeah. You didn't bet that one?
But that's awesome. I might have to bet Ohio State just for that stat now, just for the historical standpoint to see what happens. So
That's right.
thank you for that,
September
Drew.
1996. Nebraska wins and covers.
I love that. I wonder what Marvin Harrison Sr. was doing back then, because Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get busy against Michigan State, and his Heisman odds, Drew, have actually been skyrocketing. I know you and Jay have been talking about him. You guys have been pushing the market here and there. He's down to plus 800 at MGM. Other books got him around 14 to 1, 15 to 1. So there's still some good prices floating out around them. Are you still on the Marvin Harrison train? Because we've had to get off a couple players so far this season.
Yeah, no, I've got dead money in the pool on Dillian Gabriel. I've got dead money on the pool on somebody else. I don't even remember. Was it Hartman?
Hopefully Sam Hartman.
Sam Hartman. Yeah.
I mean,
but those were relatively small stakes at some pretty giant prices. I got big boy stakes on Marvin Harrison Jr. So this one is starting to get real. I don't usually look at box scores of college football games in the middle of my day on Saturday, because I got things going on in my life and I don't really care about the statistical performances of college kids. But I was glued to the box score in Ohio State, because I was like, I was the meme of the kid with the stick poking the pile, say, come on, do something. That was 2 receptions for 14 yards for a long time in that game. And I was like, I guess this is where it ends. This is how it dies. He ultimately gets some late scores in that one, so it doesn't look quite as, deficient, and keeps him in the mix, I suppose. But boy, would I love nothing more than like a nice 4-touchdown, 300-yard bounce back. Is that asking too much?
No. I mean, it's possible for him. I mean, he's had 3 games now where he scored at least 2 touchdowns this year, and that last week, Drew broke a 4-game stretch of 100+ yards for Marvin Harrison. So yeah, I mean, 4 catches and 25 yards won't move the needle much in the Heisman market, but when you add 2 touchdowns on the 4 catches, that kind of helps out a lot more. So yeah, I mean, I can't argue with not having him, because if they beat Michigan, he's your new favorite. Without a doubt. So you're getting,
that's the entire handicap.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to, because everyone's talking about JJ McCarthy. I'm glad we've backed off that. His odds have come back from being plus 200, plus 250 to plus 800, because that's where it should be. But of course, he'll be a top 3 favorite once again, or probably get invited if they beat Ohio State. That's just how much that game actually means for both teams and players. But I'll point out my pick, which is now official.
Don't say
Bo
it.
Nix.
No. Oh,
yes.
This hurts.
I called him no Nix 2 years ago. How the tides have turned. How I've changed my opinion on this man. He's been awesome. And I think Oregon has a direct path to the college football playoff. If you're talking about a team outside the top 4, I think the Oregon Ducks are the best bet to make the college football playoff. They have a much easier road than Washington. They'll get Washington as in a rematch game, and a game they should have won already. And as we mentioned, Florida State, a little fraudulent. Ohio State could get knocked out. They lose to Michigan. So there's a lot of things that point in the direction of Oregon making the college football playoff, Drew.
Yeah, my reaction was not, I don't like your take. My reaction was heartburn, because you remember, you can check the tape. There was a day in October where we were discussing college football and we were breaking down Oregon, Washington, and you brought up a very salient point, which was, hey, right now, like, feels like whatever quarterback wins this one is definitely live for the Heisman, right? And I was like, yeah, that's a great point. And I was like, but and I looked right after that podcast, I looked very hard at the market, and I was like, I like the price on Oregon money line better in that game. And so I made a losing bet instead of putting just a beautiful Bo Nix ticket in my pocket. And I've regretted it ever since. And I think that your points are very fair. Like, there is a decent chance that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ohio State, well, I say a decent chance, I say 35 to 40% chance that they beat Michigan, go to the Big Ten championship and win outright, right? There is also a world where that happens and Bo Nix still wins the Heisman, because his path is straightforward, like you said, and his abilities are unquestionably amazing. And I think, a chance to get redemption against Washington in the Big 12 championship game, that's possible, right? There's no more East-West nonsense or North-South nonsense or
best
whatever.
2 records.
Okay, best 2 records. So we're gonna get another Oregon-Washington game probably. If he gets his revenge in that one, then I guess it's on. He's playing incredibly well right now. So yeah, if I am looking over my shoulder, and I am very concerned about his particular path to victory here. What was the best price you ended up with on this?
Well, I got him for some lunch money early in the season at plus 650. So didn't hit. Obviously, wish I'd have went heavier on it, but Sam Hartman was still alive when we were talking about the Heisman market back then because he had a big game coming up before he number 2'd the bed, we'll say. But Bo Nix, I think will give us contention here to win this, and I'll say 2-3 years ago, Drew, when we first started working together and started doing these podcasts together, Bo Nix was at Auburn. All right. And he was putting up 12 touchdowns, 7 picks, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks in a season, 5-6 yards per pass attempt. He wasn't doing anything special.
Just lost. He was lost. Yeah.
Yeah. And 2 years at Oregon, 29 touchdowns, 7 picks, 25 touchdowns, 2 picks. He has the 3rd best QBR in the entire country this year. So, yeah.
I dig it. Well, I'm gonna rein in my request to something more reasonable from Marvin Harrison Jr. this week. I'm gonna ask for 7 catches for 140 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think that's doable.
Very possible.
That would match his output against Michigan State last year.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I like that tidbit, Drew. All right, we'll do that then. We'll watch some Marvin Harrison. So yeah, check us out on Saturdays. But Sunday night is also going to be a pretty good night too, because NBC will be going to Vegas. All eyes are on Las Vegas when you see Sauce Gardner and Devontae Adams match up. The Jets travel to the desert, face the Raiders. Coverage starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. I did make my money back on the Raiders last week after they smacked up on the Giants. Quarterback changes matter in the NFL, and it's going to matter here on Thursday Night Football because Justin Fields could play, could not play. Tyson Bagent is the quarterback. If he does not, the spread was 4 earlier when I played my side in this game, Drew, but now it's down to 3.5. Who do you like?
So I'm hearing pretty sincere confirmation that it will be Tyson. Fields will not be going, which is the right call. I don't think you want to put a guy with a thumb injury on the field in a short week. I think you want him to get a full week of practice and feel max confidence heading into his first game returning. And the situation is a little weird for Fields right now. Like, he needs to come back and play well down the stretch, or he's going to lose his job. And I don't think you again want to ask him to do that on short rest, even against a Panthers opponent that is wildly underwhelming so far this year. Would it shock you to know that there were, I believe, 8 rookie quarterbacks who played, a decent amount of snaps on Sunday last week, or really over the entirety of week 9? Bryce Young was worse than all of them except one, including Tyson Bagent. And the only guy that played more poorly was Clayton Tune, who was thrust into an absolute deathly situation against the Browns defense on the road. But you can't say the same for Bryce Young. Bryce Young was at home and he was playing the Colts. And to be performing that poorly 2 weeks off a bye with a new offensive coordinator, a system they're trying to lean into your strengths, and yet you give up 14 points to the opposing defense. You lost by 14 points. That was one of the worst offensive performances of the Colts had all season. The Panthers were right there if you just avoid the backbreaking mistakes. And he was literally the beginning, middle, and end of the reason that they lost last week at home. And now he's got to try to bounce back on a short week on the road. And, can he do it? Sure. Do I want to get involved? No. And I think the major thing to kind of point out here about the Bears is I don't really know what to expect from Fields when he gets back. But I do know that the market treating this team like it is literally a bottom 2 or 3 team is probably not right. I think the Bears should be meaningful favorites over the Panthers. I think the Bears should be meaningful favorites over the Giants. They may even be meaningful favorites over the Patriots, the way that they're playing offense right now. And I think you can highlight the quality of the offensive play that we're seeing from some of those young players. And you can highlight, at least the way they play in the trenches. The Bears had the worst EPA per play defense on both run and pass last year. They were 32 with a bullet, and they have managed in one season to go from 32nd to first in terms of run EPA, which is insane. And I'm excluding turnovers here, so we're not giving them credit for forcing fumbles. We're just saying go line up and stop them. They're doing amazingly well at it. And I don't know how they have figured this out. Eberflus is obviously a defensive guy. And I have kind of now worked my way into, well, if you're going to play that quality of a defense and make the Panthers one-dimensional and force you to beat them through the air, and you have a not confident Bryce Young, then how is this game getting to 40? I think this is an under.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk you off the under. I definitely think both ground games are going to struggle here in this one. Like you just mentioned, Chicago's EPA on the ground is great, but EPA through the air is kind of where they struggle. They let up almost 7 yards per passing play, which is 29th, and they've also allowed opponents to convert 49% of their third downs, which is last in the NFL, something that Bryce Young desperately needs because, Drew, my only losing bet in all the NFL this past weekend was Carolina plus the 3.
Oh, and that one stung, man.
Yeah, and it was frustrating, and like I said, we mentioned before the show, I think it's very important for bettors who use the public books to use boosts. I think if you're going to do something, if you're going to play a game, use the 25-50% boost and get some of your winnings increased. And I did a parlay, and all my NFL bets hit Cardinals team total under, Cardinals first quarter team total under, Steelers on Thursday. Raiders money line, Drew, but the Panthers can't do it because Bryce Young wants to throw 2 pick sixes. But I don't think that this spread should have moved from 1 to 3.5.
True.
That's what the look headline was 1 for Chicago here.
It's a big
and that kind of concerns me. And I agree. And the last time I was on Chicago, Thursday Night Football against the Commanders, +7 in the money line we took. But I just don't feel confident. I'm on Carolina plus the 4 and 3.5.
Okay.
And I think they can win this game. I still think Chicago's overvalued. Like, I think that they are bottom 5 in the NFL.
Okay.
Easily.
They can run. Easily. They can stop the run. They can't pass, and they can't stop the pass. And this is a passing league. So, it's a very, very oddly constructed team. And I don't know. Maybe you could be onto something because that could have been a local low for Bryce Young last week. Then he might not play that poorly ever the rest of the season. That could have been a local high on Badgett last week, and he might not play that well the rest of the season. Like, that's entirely plausible. Not really, dying to get involved with this game one way or the other. But we'll see how the situation manifests. It's looking like not good. Like, we're not going to get a weather game. 48 degrees, low chance of rain, wind in like the 13-mile-an-hour range. So nothing to really be spooked about there. So, possible that if there's a little bit of offensive efficiency in this contest, that it begets some scoring. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't hang my hat or put my money on there being a lot of points in this game. So I do lean the under on that side with you, Drew, and I'll be rocking with Carolina plus the 4. Trying to keep our nice Thursday Night Football record going here. Best bet from the show, Drew. Does it involve Ole Miss?
Boy. Ole Miss is a good one. Tough to go back to back on that one though. So yeah. I'll go with Miami. I like Miami plus the points. Nothing for me in the money lines there. I just see the distance between those two teams is a lot narrower than 14.5, and no injuries at this point, at least that I'm knowledgeable about.
That's a good bet. I should have definitely predicted that one. That's a miscue on my part.
What about you? Where are you going?
Wouldn't know you would not go back-to-back weeks fading Georgia on the spread. So I got to be better than that.
Dancing with fire. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be on Michigan pretty heavy this weekend. So I don't think Penn State gets the 20 points on them, and I think Michigan wins and covers that game. But I'll leave you with this, Drew. Player prop. I texted my friend. I said you have to bet Blake Corum touchdown. We have to find something to parlay with it.
Okay.
My now pick is Marvin Harrison Jr. All right. So Blake Corum touchdown against Michigan with Marvin Harrison touchdown against Michigan State.
Do the ladder. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. He's going deep more than once, I think.
Yeah. No, I love that. So once
Statement
again,
game,
great
as they say.
It's the Heisman game for Marvin Harrison is definitely 3 touchdowns against Michigan State. Warming up for that Michigan game that I'll also be at, and I can't wait.
We'll be good.
So college football is just heating up, Drew. NFL NBA, and we have college basketball. So make sure you guys all check out NBCsports.com for all your wagering help, all your fantasy options. And don't forget to check us out on Amazon.com/NBC Sports. Thank you, Dan, our producer. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening live. And, of course, from Vaughn and Drew, best of luck, and we'll see you next week.